So far in this series, we have looked mainly at adding text-based elements, such as lists and headings. Now we're going to look at how to add images to our web pages. Adding images is relatively easy. To do this, we need to add an image element. This can be added anywhere in our body section, but I'm going to start at the bottom of our page. So let's scroll down below the unordered list, and we can add the image element, which is img. The image element is one of the few HTML elements to not have an opening and closing tag. You will often hear this being referred to as a self-closing tag, and also often see a closing slash at the end, just like this. You can use this, but it is not required. We then specify the location of our image by adding the source attribute. The image source can either be an image file inside our project folder or an external source. First, let's begin by linking to an external image, which is hosted on another web page or server. To do this, I'm going to grab an image from the Wikimedia Commons website. So if we go to Google and then search for the Wikimedia Commons, and go to commons.wikimedia.org. We see on the home page we have a picture of the day. So of course this is going to change when you visit, but all we need to do is click on this. And then if we right click and copy image address, then head back over to the project, then we can paste this inside of our image source and give that a save. Back over to our index.html, we can then hit refresh, and now our image is now displayed by linking to an external source. More common though is displaying images we add to our project internally. On my desktop I have 3 different images. I have a pizza, a curry and a Mexican picture. Of course you can grab any images of your choice. So I'm going to grab all 3 of these and drop them inside of my project folder. And if we open up the text editor, and then we can use each one of these 3 images to appear next to each list item. So let's delete this external source. We don't need that anymore. Okay, so if we open up the sidebar inside the project, we can see alongside the index.html we have our 3 images. So we can go ahead and link these now. So I'm going to delete the text from before, although it can be left in place, and instead I'm going to add the image element. The image source is the name of our image. So the first one was pizza, and it had the .jpeg extension. So pizza.jpeg. We can then do the same for the curry. Let's add a new image element with the source equal to curry.jpeg. And finally the Mexican. So the source is equal to mexican.jpg. Give that a save and check this out in the browser. There's our pizza, the curry and also the Mexican. So this image displays because the image is at the same level as our index.html page. The file path must be relative to the file we are currently in. If we had all these images inside of a images folder, as an example, so let's go over to our project folder and open this up. If instead we create a new folder called images, and make sure it's spelled correctly, and then if we drag in our 3 images, just like that. If we now open up the browser and refresh, we now see we get an error. None of the images are now appearing because the file path is incorrect. We just need to change this to reflect. So we can add the images folder for all 3. Give that a save and then reload, and we see our images are back in place. Next up, we need to go back to the image element and add a alt attribute. This is so we can add some alternative text for if the image could not be loaded, or for visually impaired users using screen reader software. So after each image source we can add the alt attribute, and we can add the text which we want to appear. So such as pizza image, a curry image, and a Mexican image at the bottom. So save that. And if we go over to the browser and reload, we shouldn't see any difference because we're using a standard browser rather than a screen reader. But that's perfectly fine. We now have it in place for anybody who needs it. So just to finish things off, I'm going to show you how to change the width and height. So let's go over to our image. I can close the sidebar. All we need to do is add these as attributes. So we've set the width to be 200 pixels and also a height to be 200 pixels too. Save that and then refresh. And now we see a 200 by 200 image on the screen. The image looks out of proportion now, but we can fix this by changing just one of the attributes. For example, if we only wanted the width to be 200 pixels and the height to be in proportion, we can just set one of the values and then refresh. And now we see the picture isn't stretched or squashed. So although we are able to change the width and the height using the image element, it is recommended to do this with CSS to give us more control and flexibility.